أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, we are carrying on with our subject on dry ablution. Last lesson, we started off by saying that dry ablution, to be able to do it, you had to make an intention, you needed to be far away from water, and we also said that dry ablution can be done if you're afraid of missing janaza salah or Eid salahs, because they don't have a replacement for them. So if you miss them, you can't pray them again. There is no qada. Unlike for Jum'ah, for example, with the Jum'ah, you can't do dry ablution for it, even if you're afraid of missing it, because you can always pray Dhuhr instead of it. Not saying that's what you should do, but dry ablution just isn't an option. Now, dry ablution can be performed with a purifying substance of the earth that... Now pay attention to this. A lot of people get this wrong, and a lot of people's salahs are invalid because of this. So please do not fall into the mistakes that other people are falling into. Okay? So it needs to be performed with a purifying substance of the earth. Okay? So not a man-made substance, not plastic. Okay? It needs to be from the earth, and it does not burn with fire and become ashes. Okay, like trees, so wood, you can't do dry ablution on wood, and grass. Okay, what else? You can't do it on a bus seat or an airplane seat or a cushion or anything of those sorts. Okay, you cannot use the dust which is on a book, which has been in a house, which has gathered dust in a house. You cannot use that dust, because that dust is not from the earth, that is from your carpet. Remember that. So the dust that you see accumulating in your house, that comes from your carpet and from your body. That is not from the earth, because we do not live in a desert. We do not get dust, as in sand, on our stuff. What we get, it comes from our clothes and our carpet. That's the type of dust that gathers in our house. So you can't use that for dry ablution. Neither can you use trees. You cannot use grass. Anything that can burn and turns into ashes. Okay, so these two, if it burns and turns into ashes, then you can't use it. Also, it cannot be imprinted upon or becomes pliable, like iron and glass. If you heat these enough, okay, they become pliable. That's how we make swords and knives and things. If you heat up metal enough, what happens? It becomes pliable, which means you can bend it and mold it and shape it. But for a rock, for example, a rock, if you heat it enough, it'll melt and it'll become lava. But it won't become pliable. You cannot stretch and shape a rock. Okay? You cannot stretch and shape granite and things like that. So it doesn't burn and become ashes. Neither does it become pliable or can be imprinted upon. Okay? For example, soil. Okay? You can't burn soil into ashes. All it does is, depending on the soil obviously, if it's clay, it just turns into a rock basically. a smooth stone, or sand. Okay, if soil is mixed with another substance, the ruling is based upon that which predominates. So, for example, burnt vegetation is mixed with soil. If the soil predominates, dry ablution is permissible, otherwise it is not. So, there are two things we take away from this. Okay, so try to always understand how these rulings may change the way you do things, or may change the how you should have done things. For example, so what does it say? So we learned here, right, that we can't use grass. Okay, so if you're on a football pitch, for example, or you're in like Sefton Park, you're in a park, a field where there's grass everywhere. Okay, and let's say you need to do tayammum, you need to do dry ablution. Obviously, what are you going to use? You're going to use the soil, right? You're going to use the soil, but the soil is covered in grass. So can you just hit your hand on the floor, on the like ground, and wipe it? If you didn't read this, right, you may have just done that. You may have just gotten your hands, hit it on the field, and done your dry ablution. But your hands would have touched the grass, not the soil. Remember, you cannot use the grass. So what you would have to do, you can either dig a little bit with your hands just to get pure soil, just to make sure that your hands are touching soil and not just grass, right? Depending on how thick the grass is, obviously if it's like patchy grass, you can find a nice bit of soil to use. But remember, grass doesn't work. Soil does work though. So you need to move the grass aside, you either rip it up or whatever, or just find a place where there isn't grass, and that way you do dry ablution. Move this. Sorry, I'm just adjusting some things here. Okay, remember guys, you can always ask questions. If I'm going too fast or too slow, you can always say something in the chat. Okay, if soil is mixed with another substance, the ruling is based on that which predominates. It said soil here, but obviously remember all the way back when we were learning about different types of water, we said 51% of anything is basically the whole thing. So not just soil, right? For example, if you had sand and that sand had a bit of something else in there, as long as majority of it was sand, then we count it as all sand. Okay, for example, if you gather sand from a beach, you might get some glass in there. Remember we said you can't use glass? If you gathered sand from the beach, you might get some glass in there, you might get some rubbish in there and everything. But because the majority of it is always going to be sand, then it doesn't really matter. Okay. The fourth, the obligatory stuff we're talking about, yeah? So if we went back up, all the way up, what were we talking about? We were talking about the conditions, we were talking about the 9 conditions for dry ablution. Okay, so we said it's forming an intention, and then we talked about how we should do the intention. We said we need an excuse because dry ablution isn't allowed normally. We need an excuse for it. That could be the cold, that could just be not having water, that could be that your pets need the water, things like that. So you need an excuse for dry ablution, you can't just do it. And then the third one we just read, for you to be able to do it, you need to have access to something that is from the earth. Okay, the fourth condition to wipe completely the face and arms up to and including the elbows. Remember, completely. Just because we're wiping and we're not washing doesn't mean that we can be less precise. And unfortunately, even those who people consider to be scholars, I've seen them make videos and do it wrong, which is very surprising. I'm not sure why people are skipping this part. So when we're washing, right, what did we say? You can't even leave a pin drop dry, right? And that's what we mean by completely. The same goes for tayammum. But when you see them, when you see people wipe their face for tayammum, you'll see them just do this. They'll skip this part, for example. Let's show you like this. So if I were to get closer, you see them, when they wipe, they'll just do this, like this. But when I put my hand like this, right, my hand's not touching my eye. It's touching my eye socket here and my nose, right? But it's not touching my eyelid properly, completely, like this side and this side, right? So if I just do this, that's not enough. I have to do this, right? I need to get my 4 fingers in there or 3 fingers in there to make sure I get this part and the valley of the nose here and down and here. Because if I just put my hand like this, right? What have I missed? I've missed this part, remember? Everything that you see when you look at somebody's face needs to be wiped. So again, like I said, even some scholars, I've seen them do it wrong, where they wipe like this, just like this. They haven't done this part, they haven't done this part or this part here. But when we say completely, you're supposed to be doing it like this. So slowly, make sure you're getting everywhere, right? Someone said they couldn't see me. My video's on. I think everyone else can see me. Depends on what. If you're on a phone or something, just make sure that I'm the one that's pinned. You should be able to see me. But either way, even if you didn't see me, the whole point is that you're supposed to wipe every single part of your face and not leave a single place that is dry. Well, dry in washing, but also that hasn't been wiped in dry ablution. Understood? So if you go on YouTube and search how to do tayammum videos, you'll notice that I don't even remember seeing one that was done right. Not that I've researched it and watched hundreds of videos. It's just that every time I've seen one or had one sent to me, I've noticed that they didn't do it properly. Because they just wipe their face one time and they're like, that's it, that's all you need to do. But the book, and in Hanafi it says completely, right? They may be another different madhab, to be fair. I don't know the other madhabs, but in Hanafi it's completely. You got to wipe it completely. And I'll show you how much we care about this in a bit. Right? Up to and including the elbows. Okay, we're talking about the face and arms, up to and including the elbows. Even so much so that a tight-fitting ring or bracelet needs to be moved or removed. Okay? And as for loose-fitting ones, if dust reaches the skin beneath, moving it is not necessary. Okay, so jewelry needs to come off. Dust needs to get underneath there. Similarly, running fingers in between the fingers is mandatory if dust does not reach between them, because we're not using water, we're using dust. And dust isn't going to flow as nicely as water does. So before, while this was sunnah, now it becomes fard, right? Because otherwise you can't get there. Let me unzoom a little bit. There we go. This should help with being able to see everything. So while in wudu, doing this was sunnah, right? In dry ablution, it becomes fard if dust doesn't reach there, because dust isn't like water. It's not going to run all over your body like water does. You have to physically move it about. Otherwise, it is not mandatory. So either if you're using, like, if you're literally just pouring sand on yourself, then obviously it's basically like water. If one wipes with the hand, it must be with the majority of it. So you can't, so at least like 3-4 fingers, right? You can't just use one finger to wipe. You can't just wipe your face with one finger. Okay, you need to wipe with the majority of your hand, which is the minimum being 3 fingers. If one rolls in soil, okay, so remember what we said in wudu and ghusl. We said if you have a shower, if you were to take a swim, then we said that you automatically would have wudu, okay? So is it the same if someone were to roll in sand, for example, with the intention, because in wudu intention wasn't fard, but in dry ablution, tayammum, intention is fard. So if someone made an intention and rolled in sand, okay, if one rolls in soil or sand with the intention of dry ablution and the soil reaches the face and the hands completely, obviously, this is sufficient. This would work, okay? So from this, we also understand that if you were to pour sand on yourself, okay, and rub it in, yeah, if you were to pour the sand on yourself, if you were to roll in the sand, you know, obviously you can't swim in sand, but if you were to like bury yourself in sand, as long as you covered all of the face and the arms, for us, that is enough. That's the whole point of it, okay? So remember, whatever is more than necessary will suffice for the necessary. So what we said, for example, wiping your hair in wudu, remember, wiping your hair is fard, right? If someone were to wash their hair, even without wiping, so if they were to get a shower head, so their hand hasn't touched their hair, but they've washed it, and then they did the rest of their wudu, would that count? We say, yes, that would count. Why? Because washing is more than wiping, okay? It goes above and beyond. Therefore, it suffices for wiping. Washing suffices for wiping because it's even, it's not better, but when you talk about it cleaning wise, it is better. Wiping is obviously not as good as washing. But why we don't call it better is in wudu, we do what we were told to do. We don't make things up. So with dry ablution, it's the same. What are we told to do? We're told to wipe, right? So we put our hands on the sand and we wipe our face, put our hands on the sand, and then we wipe our arms. Obviously, all of this after doing the intention. But if we were to pour the sand on our face, if we were to pour the sand on our arms, that would also work because that goes above and beyond. Striking the palms of the hand twice on the soil, even if it is in one place. So 2 strikes need to happen. And when we say strike, it doesn't have to be hitting. It can be just placing your hands on the soil. Okay. So I like to say sand instead of soil because it's easier to visualize. Okay. So striking or placing the palms of the hand twice on the sand. So your hand needs to touch the medium twice, which means you cannot do it just once and then wipe your face and arms. You need to wipe your face and then touch the sand again and then wipe your arms, right? You need to touch the sand twice. Can't just touch it once. even if it is in one place, okay? So what we did for somebody in my family who is paralyzed, we got them a stone this size, right, for tayammum, because they can move their arms but they can't move the rest of their body. We got them a tayammum stone this big, and it's only big enough to put one hand on it. So the way we told them to do it is you put one hand, you move that hand, and then you put the other hand on it. So that's what it means. Even if it is in one place, right? So it doesn't need to be huge. A stone this big, right? It gets difficult with the camera. A stone this big is enough, right? As long as you can put your hand on it, and then you can obviously move your hand on it like this to make sure your whole hand touches it. Same, and then you move that hand obviously without touching anything. You touch it with the other hand. Do I have something here which could... So let's say this OP, right? It's only big enough for one hand. So my hand touches it. My fingers haven't touched it, so I can slide them like this, okay? So my whole hand has touched it. Obviously, imagine this is on a table. Then I get my second hand, touch like this. So both my hands have now touched the stone. So if you go on like eBay and Amazon, obviously we're boycotting Amazon, but any online retailers, you may be able to find a tayammum stone. Obviously, we don't do tayammum unless we have a reason. So if somebody in your family is, you know, bedridden and they need to do tayammum, you can buy them a tayammum stone. They don't need to have somebody help them get wudu. Alternatively, with the intention of dry ablution, that which takes place of the two strikes. Now, remember we said you need to touch the sand twice. Either you need to touch the sand twice and wipe, obviously. Otherwise, with the intention of dry ablution, obviously, you can do something which takes the place of those two strikes, which is, for example, what we said here, rolling in the sand or pouring the sand on yourself. So, unless you're rolling in the sand or pouring the sand on yourself, you need to hit the sand twice. If you're pouring the sand on yourself, then you don't need to hit the sand twice, because pouring it on yourself is even better, right? In terms of cleanliness. I'm not talking, when I say better, I don't mean better as in it's sunnah or it's fard or something like that. In fact, it's probably not better because it goes against what we've been taught of how the Prophet ﷺ used to do things. Okay. 7, cessation of that which nullifies dry ablution. So, just like in wudu, you can't get wudu until whatever is nullifying your wudu has stopped. For example, if you're actively bleeding, you can't go get wudu. The same thing with dry ablution. If you're actively bleeding, you can't get dry ablution for salah. But you can get dry ablution for ghusl. Okay? Including the menstrual period, postnatal lochia, and that which causes minor ritual impurity. Okay? Because dry ablution is special in the sense that you can use it for both wudu and ghusl. Right? So if someone's bleeding, they can get dry ablution, but they can only get it for ghusl. Because bleeding doesn't ruin your ghusl, your bath, your shower. It only ruins your wudu, your ablution. It doesn't ruin so it's minor ritual impurity. It's not major ritual impurity. But because dry ablution, you can get it for minor and major. If you're actively bleeding, you can get it for your major ritual impurity, but you can't get it for your minor ritual impurity. Removing substances that prohibit wiping the skin. So just like remember we said we care about this. Any piece that's left unwiped, we say will nullify your dry ablution. It doesn't work. Even that means, just like with wudu, just like with water, just like you're not allowed to have wax on you, you're not allowed to have oil on you, which is stopping water from touching your skin. Even with tayammum, you're not allowed to have anything that prohibits you from wiping your skin. For example, wax and grease. Okay, oil, wax, or like we said, the nail varnish, as they prevent one from wiping the limb completely. Okay. 9. Searching for water when one knows with compelling surety, غلبة الظن, that water is available. Okay. Now there are a couple of words I'm gonna say now. So غلبة الظن, okay, the word here being ظن with a dha. ظن means being fairly sure of something. We usually describe this as about 70% sureness. So if we were to put it like percentage wise, right, we would say that anything 70% and above, obviously not being 100%, 70% and above, up to like 99%, we would say is dhan. We would use the word dhan, which means you are fairly sure. Okay. Around between 45, 50 and 70, we would usually use the word, we would just say wahm. I'm not too sure. I'll get back to that one. It's either wahm, but I know that on the lower end it's a shubha or a shak. Okay, so if you're like from 0 to 20, 30%, is like shubha and a shak. Okay, so when we say there's a shak, you're like, you feel like maybe something is there, right? So when we say غلبة الظن, we mean like above 70%, like almost certain. Okay, so when you are almost certain that there is water nearby, then you must search for the water. Okay, for example, if you're in the middle of a desert, there's no point of you searching because you don't have that غلبة الظن. But if you're in a forest, okay, and you feel like you can hear flowing water somewhere, and it doesn't sound too far away, you're not absolutely sure that there's water, right? You're not a survival expert, but you feel like that. I think I might be able to hear some water somewhere. Okay, or you feel like, you know, there's a dip, there's a valley here. Valley is usually where rivers are, water is. Let me have a quick look at this valley. There's probably some water down there, right? So if you're in a situation like that and you feel like, you know what, most likely there's water somewhere here, you should go search for some water. But if you're in a situation where you're in the middle of a motorway, for example, right, there's no way you're getting to water even if there is water, right? There's no way you're getting off the motorway safely without putting your life in danger. So let's say you've broken down, you're in those SOS laybys, okay? You're not getting out of there. There's no way you're reaching any type of water. You're gonna, if you're there and you're stuck and you have to pray, it's tayammum for you. If in a workplace, sorry, there's a question, I'm reading that out. If in a workplace there is one designated area for ablution, they prohibited ablution in other sinks, there is a long queue for one space available and you're afraid of missing salah, can you do dry ablution? Remember what we said? No. Dry ablution is only allowed for Eid and for Janazah. The rest, because they have qada, and because they have replacements like Dhuhr for Jumu'ah, it doesn't matter if you're afraid of missing the Salah, you're not allowed to get dry ablution. Okay. We need to pick up the pace. We're not going to finish this otherwise. Obligatory integrals and sunnahs of dry ablution. The legal reason, remember when we said sabab? Sabab means, why is it farz upon you? So why is it fard upon you? Remember in ablution, we already said the reason ablution is fard upon you is one, because you're a Muslim, and also because you need it for salah, and salah time is about to expire. So wudu doesn't become fard on you until salah time is about to expire. Then it becomes fard on you that now, unless you get up and go get wudu and pray now, you're going to miss your salah. Remember that? We were talking about reason, sabab. The same sabab it's the same sababs for dry ablution. So the same reason, legal reason, and conditions for the obligation of dry ablution are known to you as detailed in the section on ablution. Okay, so the same, because dry ablution is literally just a substitute for wet ablution, the legal reasoning is the same. The two obligatory integrals of dry ablution are wiping the arms and the face, obviously with an intention. We already said that's a condition, right? But if we're talking about the integrals, right, they are two, and that is wiping the face and wiping the hands and arms. The sunnah of dry ablution are, so these are the sunnahs. Okay, what does sunnah mean? Remember, it's not obligatory, but you should do it. If you don't do it, there's no punishment, but it's not good. It's not good to not do it. Okay, so commencing by mentioning the name of Allah. So you start with Bismillah. You wipe each limb in the correct order, which is the face, the right arm, the left arm. We don't do it 3 times, but we do the face, the right arm, the left arm. Obviously, after the face, you need to strike the sand again, and then do the right arm, left arm. Continuity in wiping, sunnah, not fard. Remember? So you could do half your arm, 5 minutes later you could hit the sand again and do the rest of your arm. Yani it's not good, but it works. Striking the inside and outside of the hands on the soil. Okay. So normally just the inside is enough, but doing both, okay, is sunnah. Obviously, when we say striking, that could also mean just placing your hands on it. Don't understand striking as you have to hurt yourself, right? Nothing in Islam asks you to hurt yourself, except for war, obviously. But you don't have to hurt yourself or hit the stone or anything. Just tap it. A light tap is fine. Moving the hands forward and backwards on the soil is a sunnah. Okay, that's to make sure that you get all of your fingers and everything covered with the dust. Okay, so you hit the stone and then up, down. Okay, and then you shake off the excess dust from the hands by striking the sides of the hands together. I'll show you this now. So you hit the rock, and then your hands like this. That's how you hit your hands together like this. Sorry, I'm trying to get this camera to just have it look down a bit more. You get your hands like this and you hit them like this so the dust falls off. The camera is also mirrored, so that's why I'm getting my rights and lefts mixed up here. So you strike the stone, then you hit the sides of your hands together, and that drops the dust. Spreading the fingers apart while striking the soil. Again, while striking, not closed, but open. Starting with the right side when wiping the arms. Obviously, we always start with the right. Okay, so these were the sunnah stuff. If you forget to do that, if you kept your fingers closed, that's fine. If you didn't do the continuity, that's fine. If you didn't move your hands backwards and forwards on the soil, as long as your whole hand touched it, it's fine. The method of dry ablution is that one wipes the outward of the right arm with the inside of the 4 fingers of the left hand, beginning from the fingertips to the elbow. Then one wipes the inside of the right arm with the palm of the left hand, not using the fingers, beginning from the elbow to the wrist. Now I'm going to show you this. That's why I read it so fast. Okay, so pay attention here. A lot of people, again, they don't get this. Even the videos on YouTube, they get it wrong. It's written out clearly in the books. So I'll show you here properly and pay attention. That's why I'm wearing this, so that I can show you guys my arms easier. My voice isn't going to be heard clearly because I'm going to move the mic away. But just pay attention. I'll try and speak loudly and I'll increase the sensitivity on it. Okay, so inshallah, you can still hear me fine. I've increased the sensitivity. In fact, it might be a bit too loud. Okay. So when wiping our arms, this is my right arm. It might be mirrored, but this is my right arm, okay? We've made our intention. We've hit the soil or the sand or the rock. We've wiped our face nicely, completely, including here, okay? We've got it all done. Now we need to do our arms. How do we do our arms in one movement, right? Because that's a big area to wipe and a very small area to wipe with. So what's the tactic? What's the method? What's the easiest way of doing this? Pay attention, this is my right arm. I need to wipe my right arm first. So my left arm is going to wipe my right arm, starting with my left hand's 4 fingers, okay? The fingers start at the top of the fingers. So I'm wiping with my 4 fingers. From the top, we go down. Pay attention. I haven't wiped my thumb yet. We're going to get to that. Okay, pay attention. The back of my thumb hasn't been wiped. We're going down, 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 like this. Okay. So I've wiped the back of my hand, except for the thumb. Don't forget the thumb, and the back of my arm. Now I need to wipe the front of it. So either I can twist my arm, or I can twist my hand. Either way, I like to twist the arm. Now I'm going to come back. Remember, my hand doesn't twist all the way. So this is still the inside of my arm. Okay. So now I twist. I come back. I come back. I come back. I come back. Once I get here. Okay, once I get here. I use this thumb to wipe the back of that thumb that I missed in the beginning. Okay? So I'm going to do that quicker now. I'll try and unzoom a bit more. Okay. So starting from the top, going down. We missed the thumb. That's fine. We're going to come back for it. To the bottom. Twist the arm. Come back. Completely wipe everything down. And once we get here, okay, with this, we wipe the back of the thumb. And then the same with the other side, like this. And when you do it quickly, you understand how simple it actually is. It's not that difficult. It's just when you're doing it slow, it seems like there's a lot of details, but there really isn't. Okay, inshallah you heard me. Inshallah you heard me fine. So that is basically how to do tayammum. Now, searching for water, we'll see. We don't have much time left. Okay, we'll just read this part very quickly because it's not that relevant to us nowadays. So we talked about we said one wipes the outward of the right arm beginning from the elbow to the wrist, and one slides the inside of the left thumb over the outside of the right thumb. The same is then performed for the left arm. Finally, one combs the beard with the fingers. So if you have a beard, you comb it like this with the fingers at the end after everything's done. Okay? Searching for water. It is mandatory to delay dry ablution. So you can't just immediately get dry ablution. Remember, it's only a must if you absolutely have to. You have to. You're not allowed to get dry ablution. It is mandatory to delay dry ablution if one has been promised water and the water is present or less than a Hashamite mile away. Okay? So not too far away. This ruling applies even if one fears missing the ritual prayer. Someone's promised you that they're going to get you water and they've left. Okay, even if you fear that you're going to miss the prayer, you need to wait for that water. That's how important it is to not get dry ablution if water is present. Okay, even if you're afraid of missing the salah, you wait for that water. Okay, if water is more than a hashemite mile away, it is not permissible to delay the prayer. Is it possible for you to take a short video performing dry wudu and send it to the group? I've already just shown it on video here now. I mean, you don't really need a video for it. It's not exactly rocket science. You just hit your hands, wipe your face, hit your hands, wipe your arms. You just make sure that you get every single bit of the face. And if you feel like you didn't get it all, just hit your hands again and do it again. It's fine. Like, it's not like you can't do it more than once. You shouldn't do it more than once, but if you feel like you've missed a spot, then just hit your hands and wipe that part. It's fine. So if it's more than a hashemite mile away, it is not permissible to delay the prayer. So hashemite mile, let's just Google this. It's about 2 kilometers, more or less 2 kilometers. Okay, so 1.8 kilometers to 2 kilometers. So actually not that far if you think about it, all things considered, because it doesn't actually take someone that long to walk 2 kilometers, get the water and walk 2 kilometers back. Shouldn't take someone that long. Maybe about half an hour, 45 minutes maybe. So even so, hashemite mile about 2 kilometers more or less. If it's more than that, okay, so if it's 2.1, 2.2, then you shouldn't delay it. That's delaying too much. Delay is not mandatory upon the one promised an instrument for drawing water. Okay, so the water's there, but someone said that they're gonna go get you a bucket and they left. Okay, so a rope or a bucket, for example. Or upon a naked person promised a garment. Rather, delaying until the last of the prayer time is recommended. So you don't have to, but it's recommended to wait as much as you can. Okay? Why? Because water is easy, right? If someone says that they're going to bring you water, it's very easy for them to go get the water and come back. But if someone says that they're going to go get you a bucket, right? Are you certain that they're going to be able to go and find a bucket? Or maybe B&Q is open, or tool station is open, Screwfix is open. They're going to be able to go in there, find the bucket, buy a bucket, then come bring the bucket back to you, because a bucket's a lot harder to find than water, right? Or rope, or maybe the bucket has a hole in it or something. So it's not something, or garments or clothes, right? It's very easy to find water, but finding clothes that are going to fit you, that are the right size for you and whatnot, right? It's recommended to wait. If someone's promised you that they're going to bring you a bucket or going to bring you water, again, we recommend waiting as much as you can until like 10 minutes, 20 minutes before the end of salah time, at which point you have to say, okay, unless I pray now, I'm going to completely miss it. If elapsing the prayer's time is feared, one performs dry ablution and prays. Okay? So in all of these situations, if you're afraid that the time is going to end, you get dry ablution and you pray. It is mandatory upon the traveler to search for water for a distance of 1 ghalwa, 400 steps. Okay? So you don't know if there's water or not. You have to search 400 steps. Start walking. If this distance is visible, he may search by looking in the direction in which he thinks there is water, while stood in his current position. So you don't have to walk. If you can see 400 steps, you can just look like this. Okay? So like I said, if you're on the side of the motorway, I mean, you can see a lot further than 400 meters, right? You just have a look like this. Is there any water? You already know there isn't. It's a motorway, right? There's going to be no water around. You get your dry ablution and you pray. while stood in his current. This ruling applies if he believes with compelling surety that there is water within a Hashamite mile due to a sign or an upright person informed him and the route is safe. So if he's heard that there's water from someone he trusts, or if he can hear the water but he can't tell where it is or how far away it is, because a waterfall can be heard from a ways away, right? You might be able to hear the waterfall, but that doesn't mean it's close. If he does not have compelling surety that there is water, it is not mandatory to search for it. So if you're traveling and then you don't need to know, if you don't know or you don't have surety that there's water, then you don't need to search for it. But if there's a reason that makes you believe that there may be water here, then you do need to search for it. If he only hopes of finding water, it is recommended to search for it. If you have a hope, remember what we said, there's a dhan, and then there's like shek. So we would say hope. So there's a shek. You have a feeling that there may be water somewhere around here. It's better, it's nice to go and search for it. As for populous areas and nearby locations, it is always mandatory to search for water. So if you're not in the middle of a motorway, right, and if you're in the middle of a city or a village, okay, then obviously you absolutely have to go search for water, because people live where there's water, okay? As for populous areas and nearby locations, it is always mandatory to search for water. What does that mean? I mean, you're going to find water, but is it available to you? Okay. So you go to a shop, you ask, how much is this bottle of water? £5. No, thank you. £5 for water is too much money. Okay. Water should be £1. Okay. It should be 50p, not £5, not 5 times the price, 10 times the price. Okay, airports. If you go to an airport, you don't have water, for example. I mean, there's sinks, but let's just say you've gone to petrol station. They're selling that half-a-litre bottle of water for £5, which they do. They even sell it for more. You can just say, no, thank you, I'll get dry ablution. You don't need to pay exorbitant prices for water. In fact, you're not allowed to. Okay, it is mandatory to request water from a companion. So if your friend has water, do you have to ask, or can you just get tayammum? From a companion, you have to ask. If one is in a place where people are not miserly with it, so you're in a Muslim country, right? And people are always sharing their water and everything, you have to ask. If the companion will not relinquish water except for its usual price in that locality, or for a small excess, and one possesses that much money in excess of one's needs, dry ablution is not performed. So he's saying, yes, I'll give you the water, but I'm going to sell it to you. And how much is the price? Well, the normal price is £1. I would like £1 20p. And if you have £1 20p to spare, then you must buy the water from your companion. Okay, he's not a great companion, but you have to buy it from him. Remember, if it's not too expensive. If he says, well, the normal price in this locality is £1, but I'm going to sell it to you for £5.50 because you've got no other choice, then you can just say, no, thank you. That's 5 times the price. If he will only relinquish water for a price that is fraudulently excessive, i.e. twice the usual price. Remember, if the price is £1 and he tries to sell it to you for £2, you don't even have to buy it. Let alone what the petrol stations and the airports do with 5 times, 6 times, 10 times the price for water for that locality. Or one does not possess that much money, or he's selling it at a fair price. He might even be selling it at a discount. He's saying, you know what, the price is normally £1, I'll give it to you for 50p, but you don't have 50p, or you need that 50p for food. Okay, then you can just get tayammum. Remember, Islam doesn't force you to go poor. Islam doesn't force you to go buy expensive things. There is no hardship, alhamdulillah. Okay, we're going to pick up the pace. One may perform numerous obligatory and non-obligatory prayers with a single dry ablution. Okay, just because you got tayammum once doesn't mean you need to keep getting tayammum for every single salah. Okay, you get it once, you can use it just like a normal wudu. Okay, just like with wudu, you don't have to get wudu for every single salah. You don't have to get tayammum for every single salah. It is valid to perform dry ablution prior to the beginning of the prayer's prescribed time. You don't have to wait until it's a dhuhr to get tayammum. You can get tayammum before it's dhuhr and then pray dhuhr with it. That's fine. If a half or a majority of the number of limbs washed in ablution or a half or more of the surface area washed in the purificatory bath is wounded. So, two things here. One is talking about ghusl, one is talking about wudu. The things we wash in wudu, the fard, what is it? The face, the arms, half the head, right, a quarter of the head, sorry, and the feet up until the ankles. If half or a majority, so both your arms and half your face, for example, right, or your face, one arm and one foot, something like that, okay? If they're injured, wounded, right, na'udhu billah, may Allah protect us. If you got burnt, half of your body got burnt, for example. Same with the ghusl. Whatever you wash in the ghusl, what the whole body, right? Half or majority of your body was burnt in a fire. May Allah protect all of us. What does a person do? How are they supposed to get wudu? How are they supposed to get ghusl? Obviously, you can't pour water on burns. Dry ablution is performed. Okay? So, if half of your body or half of your limbs that you need to wash for wudu are injured or wounded, and obviously you're not allowed to put water on it, then you just don't even bother with water at all. You get tayammum. If a majority of the limbs are sound, one washes the sound ones and wipes the wounded ones. Okay? This happens majority of the time. Somebody breaks an arm, right? And they put it in a cast. And you ask the doctors, am I allowed to take off the cast? They say no. If you take off the cast, your bones won't heal properly. Your arm will be either twisted, it'll be at an angle, so it'll heal improperly. It needs to be held in place so the bone is straight. It might grow into the angle, or it just won't heal properly and it'll be very weak. So the next time something hits it, it'll just break again, right? That's what the doctors will say to you. So they'll say, don't ever take off the cast. Come to us in about this many months' time and we'll take off the cast. Okay, so the doctors forbid you from taking off the cast. But it's only one arm. Are you going to go get dry ablution? No. You're going to wash the rest of your body. But when it comes to that one arm which is in a cast, you're going to wipe it with water. Mess. Okay? This is if it is possible to wash the sound limbs without water coming into contact with the wounded limb. If it's possible. Okay, if it's not possible, okay, for example, it's in the middle of your chest, right? The wound is here. It's in the middle of your chest and you need to go get a ghusl. How are you going to get a ghusl without water touching it? You can't, right? Or if it's on one hand, right, you might be able to, you can get a ghusl without it touching your hand. But if it's in the middle of your chest, right, someone's had an open heart surgery, they've stitched him up, they've told him, obviously, don't get it wet, right? We've literally taken out your heart, or we've literally, cut your chest open. So what's this person going to do? Dry ablution, right? He's not, don't ever wash, you can maybe wash the bottom part and things, but otherwise dry ablution, okay? You don't take risks when it comes to health. One does not join between washing sound parts of the body and dry ablution. What we don't do is we don't wash and get dry ablution. That's not something we do. We either wash and wipe, or we just get dry ablution. We don't join between them. Why? Because, it doesn't say it here, but because if you think about it, dry ablution is a substitute to ablution. So you can't have the substitute and the original at the same time. You're either doing ablution or you're either doing dry ablution. You've either substituted or you haven't. You can't do them both. There is no such thing in Islam. The nullifiers shouldn't take long. We'll read up to here. Nullifiers of dry ablution. Okay. Anything that nullifies ablution nullifies dry ablution. Okay. That's not what it says here, but that's what it means. Okay. That which nullifies what dry ablution substituted. What did dry ablution substitute? It substituted normal ablution. So whatever nullifies normal ablution nullifies dry ablution. For example, going to the toilet, number 1, number 2, anything that comes out from the front or back, bleeding, vomiting full mouth, bleeding as in flowing blood, and these things, all laughing in prayer, that all nullifies ablution, so it also nullifies dry ablution. However, there are extra things which nullify dry ablution, and that is that which rendered dry ablution lawful ceases. So whatever your reason, remember we said dry ablution always needs an excuse. If the excuse runs out, okay? So your excuse was you couldn't find water. Well, now you found water. What happens? Immediately your dry ablution is gone. If you're holding a Quran, you must immediately leave it, right? Because the second you see water, you've got no more wudu, right? You've got no dry ablution, all right? That's why there was once a joke, but I don't think we have a time for a joke. That's why if somebody loses their donkey, okay, which is carrying their water, or their camel in the middle of a desert, and then they get dry ablution and they start praying, and then they see that donkey during prayer, their salah is invalid. Why? Because they've immediately lost their wudu, because now they can see their water. That which rendered dry ablution lawful ceases, including an ability to use water sufficient to perform ablution or the purificatory bath, even if by just washing each part once, either via coming into ownership of water or being permitted to use it. This water must be in excess of one's needs. We've already read all of this. So as long as the water is yours, you're able to use it, you don't need it for food or water, right? Then you must use that water for wudu. This water must be in excess of one's needs. Dry ablution is nullified even if the above matters occur during the prayer. So like I said, you've lost your donkey, it had all your water in it, you've gotten your tayammum, you've started praying. During salah, you see that donkey, right? He's coming back. Or you just see him in the distance a bit, he's quite close. Then your salah is invalid. And obviously, apostatizing from the religion of Islam, na'udhu billah, does not nullify dry ablution. It's whatever, right? You've got other problems than dry ablution at that stage. If a double arm and leg amputee in a state of minor ritual impurity also has a wound on the face, right? So the guy has no arms, no legs, but also his face is wounded, okay? He inevitably performs the prayer without purification in the current state. So neither does he get wudu, nor does he get tayammum. He doesn't get dry ablution either. He leaves it. He just prays. Okay, because he can't wash his arms. He doesn't have arms. Obviously, he's got no legs either. What's left? His face. But his face is wounded. What does that mean? He needs to get dry ablution, but he can't because he can't wipe his face. So what does he do? Nothing. He just prays. He doesn't have to purify himself. Allah has purified him. Okay? Alhamdulillah. So we are now at the khuf, the wiping foot gear. Okay? People usually call this the leather sock. But Hanafis, we don't call it the leather sock. Why? Because that puts us into a catch-22. Because us Hanafis, we don't believe that it actually has to be leather. Other madhabs do believe that it has to be leather. We say it doesn't have to be leather. So that's why we don't call the khuf the leather sock. We call it wipeable foot gear, let's say. Okay, I'll end the recording now.